We have a Bant Golos Mirror unstandard.
Eric Johnson, a frequent mod of ours in Twitch chat. Scooter222.
Love it. Legacy, we have Celestia Depths versus Hogak. That one would be two non-brainstorm decks against each other. But we have Burn versus Amulet here in Modern. Ari wins the die roll, starts with a Colony Garden token. Goblin Guide swings in, draws Ari a card. Ari declines to block with the plant. And Gemstone Mine for double love it. Yeah, two. And Ari says, I do have a bounce land and a Primeval Titan. This is happening.
Hey,
Hey, take a counter off the Gemstone Mine, and then we'll go to the next game.
Okay, Matthias.
Searing Blaze. 3 and 3. Goblin Guide swings. Top card's another Primeval Titan.
Primeval Titan, just in case. Oof.
Well, Ari has enough mana with this Azusa to make both Titans. But he's not even going to do it.
Ryan Layman making the mistake of paying more than one life this game.
Yeah, this is actually lethal.
Yeah, exactly. This is now going to be lethal with a Primeval Titan. Just give it a second.
See, this is where I have to. You can do that annoying Amulet thing and say, but Ari could deal more than 20. Wow, what a punt! You know, he could go Azusa here, make extra land drops, Titan, make more mana, play second Titan, get this haste both Titans, blah 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 blah. But this is also going to win.
Yeah, I guess dealing 20 is fine too.
Look, you gotta. It's not just about winning. It's about looking cool while you do it. You have to. The Amulet Spirit is you have to find the most convoluted winning line and then do that one.
Oh yeah, I don't think it's about that, but
it's about
picking up a 1 minute and 55-second win in the first game of this match.
All right.
You just see both sides of the table kind of chuckling, going, "All right, well, that just happened."
Well, 1-0. So this matchup, tends to be decent for the Amulet Titan deck. That doesn't always happen. But when Ari has these fast starts, there isn't much that the Burn deck does about it.
Yeah, Amulet of Vigor in particular kind of breaks a lot of rules of what Ari's cards are supposed to do, right? Generally, entering the battlefield tapped is a drawback, and somehow it's a benefit when you have multiple Amulet of Vigors, so it just turns a lot of stuff on its head and gets real wild, real fast.
And especially Burn, a deck where all your cards kind of fall in the same range, of most of your cards are lightning bolts. When your opponent's doing something like that, it's not like there's a certain draw that's going to save you here.
Yeah, if you're on the draw especially, there is no turn 2 kill for Burn.
No.
Right, Ryan played a Searing Blaze and died.
Right.
That was
turn 1 Goblin Guide, turn 2 Searing Blaze to blocker. That's what Burn
draw.
does.
Yeah. There are some ways where some versions of Burn can win on turn 3.
Okay.
A bunch of Monastery Swift Spears get out of control and so on, but for the most part, you're kind of locked into winning on the 4th turn. And Amulet's pretty good at punishing that.
Some draws are.
Yeah. And then there are even some where you have something like Radiant Fountain or Kabira Crossroads that can buy you time against something like Burn, since the bounce lands let you keep replaying these lands.
Right. So we will look at some sideboard for Ryan. Honestly, when I've seen this match, I usually play from the Amulet side, but I think Ryan doesn't want to get too far off his game plan here. He has Path to Exiles. I don't think he wants to try to path any Primeval Titans here. It's not actually going to... That's not what this is about.
Right.
If he wants to board in some Smash to Smithereens, it's dicey because, it'll stop that from happening. And so maybe on the draw, I like it. But on the play, I really don't want to be stuck with a card in my hand that doesn't deal damage.
Yeah, I think it's going to come down to if Ryan puts Ari on having the Karn the Great Creator package, on how many copies of Smash to Smithereens he wants to have in his deck. If he puts Ari on having these Karns, then he'll probably bring in the Smashes, and he might just feel like he has to respect it because he's down a game and doesn't want to get latticed out or something. But most of the time, he just kind of wants to be as linear as possible and try to consistently have Ari dead while he's still trying to develop.
Yeah, and I like that you mentioned that because there has been some innovation with Amulet Titan. There's not a consensus deck going in this weekend. Ari is playing, I guess, what I'd call traditional Amulet Titan. He has
not an artifact in his sideboard.
No Karn the Great Creator. He still has 4 Gemstone Mine. He has added 1 copy of Field of the Dead to the deck. And that's really, in the last few sets, the only new cards we're seeing here.
Yeah, outside of that, just kind of business as usual. Well, once upon a time. But
No.
other than those, not really doing too much to change the formula.
Ari actually, this is an interesting choice of his. He has his Radiant Fountain in the main. He actually has a 2nd copy of Radiant Fountain in his sideboard.
Well, that's pretty good for him here.
It's excellent from here. It's actually surprising. You usually don't. That's not the one you see people double up on too frequently.
No, and it might just be he feel like he needs to shore that up a little bit. Burn has been on the rise the last few sets, so this is the spot where you're going to want to make sure you have it.
It's a ton of respect for Burn to put a 2nd copy of this in your deck. I mean, and he's not wrong. The games where Radiant Fountain is in your opener against Burn can be pretty laughable.
Right, and you don't really need something like a 2nd Bojuka Bog right now.
Yeah.
There aren't many graveyard decks. There aren't lands that are that good at beating up on artifacts.
And it's an interesting take, because the card you usually had a 2nd of in the sideboard was Cavern of Souls.
Right.
But Field of the Dead being added to the deck does a lot of the same things that Cavern of Souls does. It takes control decks late, is generally pretty annoying for them to deal with. So now you get to play Field of the Dead in the main, you do free up this extra slot.
Right, and there is just not as much of a need for it.
I mentioned that there were other builds out here. So for reference, I know Matthew Dilks is playing Amulet this weekend as well. Believe their team came to 2 copies of Field of the Dead in the deck, so they're using the extra spot on Field of the Dead. And they're also playing 2 castles to help ramp out these Titans earlier. Completely getting rid of Gemstone Mines and just playing a 2-color deck with breeding pools.
Sure, so you're a bit of an Amulet aficionado, Matthias. Talk to me a little bit about what Castle Garenbrig does to the deck.
I mean, honestly, what it does is it lets you play more reactive cards. So if you want to sideboard and you want to start sideboarding out things like Sakura Tribe Scouts, things that can ramp you to just play reactive things, you still need to make sure that you can ramp when you need to. Mm-hmm. And the castle just kind of lets you do that as an afterthought.
Okay, sure. That makes a lot of sense.
Once Upon a Time here for Ari Lax. This is an addition to the deck as a 4 of. A pretty natural fit for the deck.
Yeah, Ancient Stirring was already a 4 of in the deck. You would probably play up to, 8-10 copies of that card or something if you could. So this is not quite as good as Ancient Stirrings, but sometimes like this, it's even better.
Well, it can find creatures, which actually means next side by side with Ancient Stirrings, it's a really good addition.
Right, Ancient Stirrings wouldn't have been able to find this Sakura Tribe Scout that Ari has.
And that's going to be the start. It does open Ari up to a pretty big Searing Blaze.
And, it's hard to say if Layman even has those in his deck still, since you kind of just want to be out the gates all the time. He probably wanted to bring in Skull Cracks for Radiant Fountain and the like.
Yeah.
And it's hard to say if he would have looked at cutting Searing Blaze or Lightning Helix in that spot.
I think it depends how many he wants to cut. The Blaze is probably better than the Helix. Life gain doesn't really matter here. And Amulet has enough creatures that the Searing Blaze probably won't hide out in your hand. Now, is Searing Blaze good against Amulet? That's a little more debatable.
Sure, and there's certainly a spot where Searing Blaze is going to be much better on the play, but you also need to have the ability to put a land onto the battlefield the turn you cast Searing Blaze. So a lot of times, it's not reliable to just hope it turns into a Lava Spike with a Primeval Titan.
Big respect here by Ryan. He takes a Lightning Bolt and points it at the Tribe Scout. Swings in with Swift Spear for 2.
Oh yeah, absolutely. This is something where you just want to make sure that the card ends up dying.
Yeah, you don't want to see something like play Radiant Fountain for the turn, tap, put a land, bounce that into play, pick up Radiant Fountain.
Right, and a lot of the time with Sakura Tribe Scout, that card's worth a full turn of development anyway.
Right.
So this is just hopefully ensuring that Ari doesn't skip too many turns ahead.
Blockers for Ari. The Roof Bolt comes off Suspend. That one shoots down the Tribe Scout. That's an interesting one. At some point they will need to start going upstairs, but he'll attack in for 2. Ari, willing to get rid of a plant token for 2 life, stays at 17. And Layman dials up another Rift Bolt.
With only 2 cards left in hand and Ari at 17,
right,
this is not looking very good for the burn side of things.
That's the hard part, right, is that Ari, all this burn is going at 1/1s.
Exactly. These Sakura Tribe Scouts were both healing salves, and that is a perfectly fine place to be.
Yeah, Ari plays Amulet of Vigor. Another Tribe Scout picks up the bounce land, or rather the Gemstone Mine. And Ryan now has more work to do. Some good news for him. His teammate, Matthew Bevenour picks up game 1 on Legacy with Hogak.
Interesting choice to bring 2 modern decks.
Yeah. Skewered the critics. For 1.
And
To take the other 1 when he swings in for 3 more.
the later that you're answering these copies of Sakura Tribe Scout, the less sense it makes to be doing it, because there comes a point where it's hard to tell how much the card's actually ramping you anymore.
Yeah. Radiant Fountain found by Ari. I mean, you're right. At this point, Ari's going to make a Radiant Fountain this turn. And next turn, all it takes is a bounce land, and he has Titan mana.
Right.
He doesn't really need the Tribe Scout anymore.
Oof.
And in response to this trigger, here comes a Skullcrack. That's actually a big win there for Ryan. It's a 5-point life swing.
Ooh. That is huge here.
Yeah, Ari's going to drop down to 11. That happens. Actually make that 8. We missed. There was 3 more on the previous turn. Ryan filters through Fiery Islet. Goblin Guy to swing. Ari down to 5. Top cards Once Upon a Time. Now, if Ari has Primeval Titan this turn, he still can gain quite a bit of mana. Because there's a Radiant Fountain in play and 2 in his deck, Titan can do something simple like get Vesuva Fountain. So they're like, gain 4.
Right, and because he does have a bounce land hiding out in his hand, it is possible for him to make a Primeval Titan with this Amulet of Vigor on the battlefield.
Right. And a lot of times against Burn, that's just the name of the game, is how many Radiant Fountain triggers can I make resolve?
Yeah, and 5 is kind of a comfortable life total.
Yeah, 5 is, I mean, he'll be at 9, and there, Skullcrack's not up here.
Right. Like, Primeval Titan on its own is a pretty reasonable clock.
And this was a good one. You see, normally you'd pick up Radiant Fountain, but if Ari would have picked up Radiant Fountain here, then he cannot get Vesuva to copy Radiant Fountain, because Vesuva and Fountain will enter at the same time, so you actually need a Fountain in play for Vesuva to see. And this is a good setup for Ari.
Do you go for the attack here on top of it?
Your opponent might board in Path to Exile, and if they do, you're going to lose to it, so I don't think I do.
Okay, perfect.
If your opponent paths, and I like this from Ari, now Ari's at 9, everything's fine.
Yeah, absolutely. You can assume with your opponent at 14 that you actually can just kill them next turn anyway.
Look, if you untap with the Primeval Titan out of this deck, in this matchup, you win.
Yep.
It doesn't really matter. The only things that's going to happen out of Burn here is probably Path to Exile. I guess 2 Lightning Bolts, but if you had 2 Lightning Bolts, you were dead last turn.
Exactly.
So he doesn't. So you don't need to really protect this Titan. It's probably going to survive, and you'll win next turn. The thing Ari loses to the most here, he has covered with that die on top of his deck.
Yep, and there's even a spot where you just attack with Primeval Titan. You can get, say, Boros Garrison and Sun Home.
Sure.
Get in for a bunch more, bounce a Radiant Fountain, just keep going.
Yeah, right. You could get 2 bounce lands and pick up both your Radiant Fountains and then just keep playing them.
Oh, yeah.
It's some of the rudest stuff. But when your opponent's playing a deck with Lava Spike in it, and then you play Radiant Fountain, that's pretty messed up.
Oh, negate.
That should be good here. Block on Goblin Guide, Lightning Helix upstairs.
That might buy another turn. Unfortunately, I don't think negate's going to let that matter.
No. Well, Ari has to pay for his pact, so he has to tap out the blue mana.
So Primeval Titan has this ability.
Oh, it just does everything. This is its ability is that once it attacks here, Ari takes whatever cards in his deck he wants, puts them all in his hand, untaps all his mana. That's roughly what's going to happen.
Yeah, more or less. At this point, Ari has entered the phase of the game where he's trying to figure out how he loses. This is a game he has effectively won, and he's just trying to make sure he doesn't find a way to put it in the garbage.
So my thought would be, attack here. Don't give your Titan double strike. Pick up, get some blue bounce lands. Pick up both Radiant Fountains. Leave up that negate.
Yep, sounds perfect.
There's some temptation to get some red lands, either the Stronghold or the Sunhome, and I would say don't. This doesn't matter. Radiant Fountains are plenty good here. And Ari is going to pass. It's interesting. Okay. He probably doesn't have to do that. So what he was worried about was a lack of a blocker. But if he wanted to get around that, it's probably a better play to get Colony Garden and a blue bounce land.
Colony Garden's in his hand.
Okay, good. Colony Garden is his hand. So we can't get that one. It's not too bad to do this play. There are stronger lines, but this should still be good.
Yeah, this is just kind of avoiding the nightmare scenarios.
Yeah, maybe a stronger one if it's in his deck is he would get 2 lands and one of them would be Field of the Dead.
Ooh.
That would be lands 6 and 7 of distinct lands.
Well, there are 3 Radiant Fountains.
Oh, the Vesuva doesn't say Vesuva. It says her. We see Once Upon a Time from Ari.
Closing off those avenues of victory for Layman here. Layman, to get back in this game, he really, really wants something like Exquisite Firecraft to get through Negate,
Yes.
but I don't think he has any of those in his 75.
Camille Titan can attack here. Bounce land Field of the Dead is pretty good here. There's no need to get the red lands yet. Ryan's at 17, so he can't make it lethal here.
Right.
2 bounce lands also makes sense.
Just pick up everything.
Yeah, pick up the fountains.
Make a ton of mana. It looks like there was a Teleria West hiding out in his hand.
Great.
So there's a strong chance he's going back in his library in a moment.
Yeah, picks up both those copies of Radiant Fountain. Has not played a land this turn. Now has plenty of blue mana for negates. Transmutes Teleria West. Can find, if he still has a Pact of Negation in his deck, that's going to be excellent here.
Ooh.
And he's going to go, looks like Summoner's Pact for Azusa. It's a blocker. That's fine, because Azusa now can make more Radiant Fountains.
Oh.
And we see Boros Charm was the try there. That was the 4 damage spell. Ryan took a shot, but Ari had the counter. And now it's Fountain, Fountain, Colony Garden. That's going to put Ari up to 8. That should put this out of play. Ari does need to pay for that pact, and the die is...
One die for each mana.
It pays 19 mana.
Ooh, Wear Tear. So close, but a little late for that one here.
Swift Spear gets blocked.
Commander players Jeffrey Phillip and Andrew Lee. Commander players Jeffrey Phillip and Andrew Lee, your commander call is ready to begin. Please make your way back to the event stage.
And going back to Ari at this point with his opponent at 11. There's plenty of ways that he can get through this one. He says, I'm going to pay for the pact. The lands are in my hand. This is happening. Sure. Wear Tear takes care of the Amulet of Vigor. That's fine. Ari pays for the pact.
Well, this does likely, technically, buy Ryan another draw step.
Well, now it doesn't. So Primeval Titan can get some of his red lands.
Oh, now it doesn't.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Even though they don't untap, he can put it in his hand. Oh, is he going to... Yeah, he has a Gemstone Mine in hand. So he gets this in a bounce land, picks up the Sunhome, plays the Sunhome for the turn, plays the other Gemstone Mines out of his hand, attacks and double strikes the Titan. And that is exactly what he's going to do. Here's the swing, trigger, and the double strike should go on. And Ryan extends the... Yeah.
Look, Ari, look, I'm dead.
And we got Ari Lex, 2-0 winner here with Amulet Titan on the modern seat. And Ari gets the first match win, but he's going to need one of his teammates to rally here to take the round. Both Danny Batterman and Eric Johnson are down a game. We are going to go over to Legacy first here, where Batterman is playing against Matthew Bevenour. We have Selesnya Depths and Hogak.
Yeah, and these are just two decks trying to make a really big avatar.
Right, we have two non-brainstorm decks here, which oftentimes in Legacy means the matches go really quick.
Well, that's seems like it's going to be the case a lot of the time. They're both doing things that are fast, right? This Hogak deck is trying to use Altar of Dementia to flip a ton of cards into its own graveyard before completely milling the opponent out, and the Selesnya Depths deck just wants to make a 20/20 as soon as possible.
You can see that Altar of Dementia is in play for Bevenour. It's a Grave Crawler here, both players at 18. On Batterman's side, they have an Elvish Reclaimer in play with Thespian Stage. Something you have to be concerned about.
Yeah?
Merit Lage could be on the way here.
That is a way to just get the Dark Depths out of the library.
Stitcher's Supplier from Bevenour. Finds Vengevine, Bridge from below into the graveyard.
Oof.
Gonna sacrifice Gravecrawler to mill. Gets a zombie off Bridge from below. It's his first zombie. Gets to mill 2. Hogak and Hedron
Oh
Crab.
my
Now
gosh.
we have some fun. Does he have enough mana, though?
Well, you can sacrifice Stitcher Supplier, target yourself, you'll mill 4, and get a zombie. And
So there's your
then,
second creature to convoke.
if you cast the Hogak, you get Vengevines back.
So some fun is about to happen, is what you're saying.
Well, it depends on which side of the table you're on.
Let's watch this go. Bevenour, land for turn. Casts Gravecrawler out of the graveyard. That's creature number 2, we believe, which would trigger the Vengevine. Unless that ship has already sailed.
Yeah, it's entirely possible that other things have just already been cast. Nope.
And Elvish Reclaimer in response is going to find a second Bazooka Bog and bog away Bevenour's cards. Now, the Gravecrawler is already on the stack, so that's going to happen.
This still has to feel like a win on Batterman's side.
Absolutely. So they get to exile Matthew's graveyard. 2-1 into play. But those cards are gone.
That's 2 Hogaks have been exiled now.
Right. Bazooka Bog looks like it is 1 main, 1 board here. So that is both of them for Batterman.
Yeah, and this is exactly why you would want multiples of that card. There's even a point where after the first one has been found, some players might not expect the second one and play into it a little bit more, like we saw there.
And Bevenour passes. See another Reclaimer from Batterman. Didn't have the land. If they had the land, they could try to make a Merit Lage here. Over a few turns.
Right. It would take a few turns for them to do it. They just need to find a mana source or a Dark Depths now.
Do you go get the Dark Depths here?
I think that one's tough. It's hard to pull the trigger on something like that because if you draw another Dark Depths,
Then you cost yourself the game.
Yeah.
But we're going to see Bevenour restock quickly here.
ugh. Well, every time he taps a black, he just gets to mill 2 cards because of the Gravecrawler Stitcher
Right.
Supplier interaction.
So he mills 3, then mills 4 more. Found another Hogak. It's crazy to think that there was a point when all of these cards were legal in Modern.
Whoa, whoa, whoa. You didn't have careful study. You had faithless looting, okay?
Right. Now here's Hogak. Hogak going to delve away the graveyard, except for 1 Gravecrawler. So what the missing thing is Bevenour would like to find a bridge from below?
That's likely
Right.
the case here. A slightly interesting choice to not just cast a Gravecrawler and get it back to tap it there for the Convoke.
Okay.
But he's likely just plans to use the mana on something else if he can just find something to actually tap 2 lands for.
Hogak goes over to the altar. That's going to mill for 8. We get 1 bridge from below, 1 Bloodghast. 2 more cards on the way. Does he find something else? It's another Bloodghast. Casts Gravecrawler from the graveyard. Land from hand. 2 Bloodghasts enter the battlefield. This is...
Things are about to
yeah.
get saucy. I think they've already gotten saucy. I take that back.
Sauciness was already achieved. So you do these one at a time in case you find more bridge from belows. So Convoke of 2 creatures and 5 cards leaves that bridge, and here comes Hogak again.
And this is basically the combo that these decks have, is you flip your own library into your graveyard with Hogak, and then presumably have enough food to just try and put your opponent's library into their graveyard. And they have to draw a card next.
Okay, so that's actually the combo here isn't an attacking. It's Bevenour does this enough until he's generating so much mana that he has 40 power, and then he mills Batterman.
Exactly, because Bridge from Belows are each worth 2 cards out of Batterman's deck as well.
Right. Sacrifices a Gravecrawler for 2 cards.
Vengevine is late.
Yeah, that's... We've cast a few more creatures than that. Here's Gravecrawler again. Is there a reason he doesn't just sacrifice the Hogak again?
He may just not want to put too many cards in his graveyard from his library, so this Polluted Delta still has things that it can find.
Okay. Yeah, eventually you want to find more copies of Bridge from below.
Right, you want to find more copies of Bridge, so you're put in a spot where you want to put more cards in the graveyard to find more bridges or more Bloodghasts.
Right.
Before you crack your Polluted Delta, but you still need to make sure you have lands in your deck to rebuy these Bloodghasts with Polluted Delta.
All right, so Bloodghast in the graveyard, Bloodghast in the graveyard. I don't think he made zombies there.
I believe he's responding to all of the triggers. He's retaining priority with the Polluted Delta.
That makes sense. Is there a land in here? Did he know?
No. Oh, I bet Bajoka Bog exiled it earlier, and he might have missed it.
So slightly miscounts on his own deck. But here are the 2 zombies. Okay, you're right. Triggers were on the stack. 4 cards about to come off the top.
There's a bridge.
Okay. Sacrifices Hogak. This is 2 more zombies and 8 more cards coming.
And remember, with that many zombies, every 5 cards in Layman's graveyard is 8 cards coming out of Batterman's library.
Full place out of Bloodghast now in the graveyard.
Ooh,
and a third bridge.
Third bridge. That is what's going to put this over the top here.
But can he do it all this turn?
Well, every time he sacrifices the Hogak, he gets food to recast the Hogak. That's the trick, because you get untapped zombies whenever Hogak goes to the graveyard.
Right.
So I believe, unless Batterman has something to pull it out here, I'm under the impression that Matthew actually just has it from here.
Let's see if that... I think you're right. We're going to see how many times he can cast the Hogak. So, delves 5, taps 2. Here's Hogak again.
Tapping a zombie and a Gravecrawler.
Okay. So when he sacrifices it, he's going to get 3 more zombies. And at this point, is he milling Danny?
I believe you can just mill Danny at this point. So you have 5, 10, you have 13 cards in your graveyard for Hogaks. And you don't actually have to exile the bridges until the last time. So that means you can get 9 more zombies in addition to the 6 you already have, which is 15. So 30 plus 8 times 3 is 54 cards.
Well, here's the easy one. Matthew mills the rest of the cards in his deck.
Oh, yeah, why not?
All right. Well, now they're going to start targeting Danny.
Right. I believe that Matthew can mill Danny for something to the tune of 80 or 90 cards here.
All right. So cast Hogak. Right. It's just milling equal to power. So if we look at the board right now, there's 29 power worth of creatures.
Right. And that's
just that's just what we see here.
Exactly. And assuming Danny has a 60-card deck at this point, he only has 49 cards in deck.
All right, so sacrifices Hogak now. Danny is milled for 8. More zombies here. They can cast the Hogak again. Yeah, this should be enough. I just want to confirm that the game has been maintained correctly. Believe that we're still good here.
Yeah, I believe Matthew's just saying, look, I believe that I can mill you for 70 cards from here.
Yeah, and Dan, he demonstrates it. Danny will extend the hand. They drop it 2-0. So this will move things over to the Bant Mirror on standard.
And this is why you always have to sideboard an Emrakul the Aeons, Torn.
Something that stops you from getting milled.
Oh, yeah. Just imagine the look on the Hogak opponent's face when you flip over and announce the trigger. He's go, wait.
Then what are they? Because Matthew doesn't have a way to... If that doesn't work, Matthew would lose the next turn.
Right, he doesn't have a library anymore.
Right. This is between Tim Turner and Eric Johnson. Tim took game 1. We are still in game 2. As we've been seeing this weekend, these Bant Mirrors in standard really are about going over the top.
All right, and this looks like a slugfest if I ever saw one.
just
players
lands.
just have 10 lands on the battlefield. There are 3 Field of the Dead on Eric's side to 1 on Turner's.
Right. So that's good for Eric. On Turner's side, it is his turn, so you're going to get to see how he's responding. Certainly something like a land and a Golos here would make these pretty close.
Yeah, absolutely. That's the spot where all of a sudden Turner's pretty close to being able to just keep up with Johnson's zombie production. If there's a big difference between you making 1 to your opponent's 3 versus 2 to 3.
Growth Spiral from Turner.
Oh, beatdowns.
Okay. We have Questing Beast on another zombie.
You know what Questing Beast does? Guess. You'll be right.
It goes on a quest?
Everything. Questing Beast does everything. Most importantly, it's able to attack over any of Johnson's zombies in this situation.
Right, that's the important part, right? Can't be blocked by creatures with power 2 or less.
Uh-oh.
Swings
Speak
in
of
for
the devil.
4. How about a Questing Beast on the other side? So now the 4/4s will stare off at each other. It still feels like, though, with life totals as high as they are, this game, even though Questing Beast is good...
There's some game to play here, for sure.
It doesn't feel like Questing Beast is what this is about. Someone needs to do something much bigger.
Yeah, generally speaking, you want Questing Beast to be able to get stuff like Teferi Time Raveler off the battlefield.
Sure. It's a good card in the middle of the game. I'm looking for, bigger things like a Golos here, maybe if they have a mass manipulation, something that really goes over the top.
Right. You're very rarely going to be excited about Questing Beast, but it serves a role, and it's generally better than a bunch of the do-nothings in the main deck.
That's true. Draw here. It looks like Turner's hand is an Oko, a Deputy of Detention, and a basic land.
Oko, and another example of a card that Questing Beast just needs to be able to pressure.
Right. 3 mana is going to be Oko from Tim. Questing Beast. Put some antlers on it.
Taking its true shape.
Questing Elk. I'd still play a card that was called Questing Elk.
show of patience from Johnson here. It looks like he has a time wipe hiding out in his hand. So he just let
Right.
Teferi die so he can save his questing beast and then go after Oko.
Big pickup here. No great targets yet. But we see on... So there's the time wipe from Johnson. An Agent of Treachery, I believe, was the draw for the turn. But nothing completely worth stealing yet.
No, not quite. There is another Field of the Dead, if that's the avenue that Johnson wants to take. You know what's better than 3 Field of the Dead to 1? 4-2-0.
Here is that Agent of Treachery, and that's what he's going to do. He'll take the Field of the Dead.
Just good math, really.
Actually, Tim...
Could take Oko.
Yeah, it's right. Tim was going to hand him the land, and Eric paused. But yes, that is going to be the choice.
I'll play a Plains and put 8 power onto the battlefield. Your go. And this is the thing about these decks is if one player starts to pull ahead, it becomes so hard for the other player to catch back up. From here, how does Layman catch up against 4 Field of the Deads?
Right. So, apparently for some of its creatures, they went on adventures early, but a Giant's not going to save the board here.
Right. This is definitely just, a 7/7 blocker. Let's do this.
Yeah, Realm Cloak Giant was the play.
We see a Deputy of Detention hiding out in Turner's hand. It looks like he's likely going to save that for one more turn to try and get, say, 8 zombies instead of 4.
Questing Beast again here from Eric. I want to look at Tim's deck list. What kind of, how do you overcome 4 Field of the Deads to 0?
Generally speaking, it feels like he just needs to find his own copies of the Field of the Dead or Agent of Treacheries.
Players in the Two-Headed Giant, Sealed Spectacular. Your appearance for your next round.
One Kenrith in the deck. It's powerful with this much mana. I don't know if it's enough to overcome this board.
Yeah, Kenrith is blockable. I know that sounds silly, but a lot of power can go in front of that, even if it has haste and trample. Just having a judge clarify the game state here.
Johnson is down a game, so if he wins this, they are going to go to a third. Growth spiraling to Once Upon a Time for Eric. Is a Golos in there?
Gotta snap that off.
Yeah.
Oh, Hydroid Crisis.
That's going to be better. On Eric's side, this game's going really well. I do feel like he might want to pay a bit more attention to the pacing here. If he needs to win a game 3, he's going to need some time to do it.
Yeah, there's a spot where maybe spinning your wheels isn't necessarily the thing you want to be doing, but, that was at the end of Turner's turn.
All right, back to Johnson we go. Swing in here. Block on the Agent of Treachery. But 6 more damage comes in. Tim Turner down to 7. Johnson is cleaning this one up. Trying to present a lethal here. It's 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. That is Crisis. For 10. Gain 5, draw 5. Growth
Holding
Spiral.
up 2 mana, looking for some sort of counterspell, maybe a Disdainful Stroke.
Right, found Land, Spiral, and then another Agent of Treachery. But the Krasis is presenting lethal next turn. Tim is down to 3.
Fabled Passage also serving as 4 flash copies of 4 flash zombies.
And Turner picks up the card. So Eric Johnson takes the second game. And now they're going to head to a third deciding game here for the round. Winning team improving to 7-0 and locking their spot into day 2.
And this game, there's almost a point, it's rough, where you maybe want to sideboard in such a way where you're going to be better at attacking, more aggressive, because a draw is not really what anybody wants, but taking the time to change how you sideboard could almost undo the help that would give you.
Yeah. You mean if you want to sideboard towards something a bit more aggressive here?
Right. You could look into adding more power to your deck, things that are better at literally attacking just to try and get the game over with.
Right. Yeah, when we look at the cards in this matchup that are likely boarded out, right, we are looking at things like Teferi, Time Raveler, Arboreal Grazer, those sort of cards.
Yeah, you probably want to keep Teferi in your deck just because it does play well with a bunch of your cards. And there are even spots where you're using his -3 on your own value creatures. Bounce your
Sure.
own Golos, Agent of Treachery, Hydroid Krasis, these value creatures that end up defining the late game. But Arboreal Grazer, great example of something that just really does not do enough in the matchup to warrant keeping it in.
So Turner here on the play for game 3. See Ari Lax over on the side. Him and Ryan Layman looking in.
Turner snapping off a mulligan.
Johnson's hand not too bad. It's got a Field of the Dead in it. Looks like it was heavy on lands and had a Circuitous Route.
Yeah, I see a Growth Spiral. I see a Circuitous Route. This is what we call the draw.
Yeah, if it didn't have a Field of the Dead in it, you'd probably keep it
You
anyway.
keep it.
But it's nice that it has one.
Yeah, if you have 7 mana on turn 4, you just have to keep that hand basically every time.
That's what your deck does.
Exactly. You know, what 6 are you hoping is that much better than it?
I had to keep on 6 for Turner. Can he keep pace? And here we go. Start on a Boros Guildgate, which means you can't cast Growth Spiral.
Golos off the top for Eric Johnson.
That is
This could end up
looking
being a
very
runaway.
good. Yeah. Well, we'll see what Tim can do on his side.
Right.
Finds Field of the Dead. I mean, these are good lands, but Field of the Dead and Boros Guildgate aren't, as far as casting your spells, they're not great.
Oh, yeah. They're important in the late game, but finding them early like this just is not where you want to be.
Eric Johnson, a basic and a pass. Tim still with the complete wrong colors of mana here, and it's going to be an end-step Growth Spiral. We see Temple of Mystery with a Scry 1. Back to Eric we go. Draws another Circuitous Route. I mean, at this point, he barely needs anything else. Here's Arboreal Grazer.
Okay, so here's actually a plan for the post-board games that Johnson talked to me about between rounds. You save your Circuitous Routes and the like, if you can, until you have multiple Field of the Deads in play.
So you're really max valuing.
Exactly. That way, you're actually making sure you win the Field of the Dead wars by making sure you maximize the number of zombies you're getting out of every single land drop throughout the game.
And he's kind of played to that, right? We saw Growth Spiral, Grazer, Golos here, gets another field, plays another land, and then he starts casting the
next
Circuitous
turn,
Routes.
Each Circuitous Route is going to be worth minimum 4 zombies.
I really like this approach from Eric, and that's exactly what he's doing. And he sends a message. There we go. Gets in with the Arboreal
The
Grazer.
Sloth reaching across to Turner's side of the battlefield.
Blossoming Sands. So that is land 6. There's 2 Field of the Deads, but these are set up. A lot of zombies are about to enter the battlefield here. And if Golos survives, well, I guess he doesn't have red mana or black mana yet, so it will be one circuitous route.
Yeah, we'll just let our circuitous route resolve, and that'll fix itself.
On Tim's side, he actually is the first one with zombies onto the battlefield. It is his own circuitous route, bringing him lands 6 and 7.
And, you know, the thing is him having them first is not always going to be the most important thing. It's not necessarily a race when both players are going to presumably have the battlefield clogged beyond comprehension.
Attention, Matter players. If you'd like to jump into a Commander pod, we have 9 minutes left of registration for that. If you're interested in playing Commander with us tonight, you have 9 more minutes to sign up and see us at the stage.
Teferi the pickup for Eric. That actually is very important. It lets him end step the circuitous route. Time Raveler and Veil of Summer. Tim's just cycling through that one.
Yep, you just want to get some sort of value out of it.
A plus from Teferi. A pass for Eric. 5 minutes left in the round. This should be 4 zombies at instant speed as Golos attacks in.
Oh, interesting. And is that no block? Okay, so he just didn't want to chump block with a zombie. Makes sense.
Yeah, seeing that game plan from Eric.
You know, this is actually an interesting spot where Turner might not have the circuitous route on his radar if he just thinks that Johnson is playing to the clock and is just trying to be as aggressive as possible.
Questing Beast from Turner.
Oh my. That's a big one here.
They all swing in here at Teferi. Actually, Beast goes upstairs, the zombies at Teferi, but here's the circuitous route from Johnson. It's going to be 2 gates into play, 4 zombies on his side.
And this is something Turner can't respond right now, but that Questing Beast is going to deal 4 to Teferi, even if it's going upstairs because of its ability.
Right. And we see red mana and black mana were added up that circuitous route.
It's Golos time. Well, give it about half a turn.
So 4 zombies into play. I'm interested in whether Eric trades or whether he actually just takes.
I imagine you go for the trade here so you get to roll up Teferi and still just keep doing things at instant speed. Now he can just turtle up behind this Golos a little bit while he accrues his advantage here.
So the zombies trade.
Turner needs to find some way to answer this Golos or he's just going to fall too far behind.
Questing Beast deals 4 and then deals that much to Teferi, so Teferi down to 1. And big play here. Oko turns Golos into an elk.
That's
no
important.
activation.
That needed to happen.
Yeah, and that actually takes away most of the firepower that Eric had.
Well, he still has that circuitous route in his hand, and it looks like a Questing Beast of his own.
Okay. Own Questing Beast is cast. But now the clock matters. I think before it looked like Eric would be able to finish this in time. It's closer.
All right, and you know, you see him going on the offensive, realizing that is what is important here. Turner only has 15 life. I know 15 might sound like a lot, but
Well,
it is not.
when people are making 8 power at instant speed, 15's not a lot. Swing in Oko down to 1. The Beasts trade. A land makes 2 more zombies.
Yeah, and you know, Turner's at 15, but right now Johnson's threatening lethal. Maybe not necessarily on the battlefield, but with that circuitous route hiding out in hand, that's 8 more power, which would be 19 total.
Right, that last card being a circuitous route might be lethal.
Right.
7 mana, we see a bunch of ramps. So circuitous route and Beanstalk Giant. Just 3 zombies, though, on Turner's side. He only has 1 Field of the Dead to Eric's 2.
Making a food is also going to put Turner at a virtual 18 here.
And Eric going to use his last card to get more lands of his own. That's 4 more zombies. We'll see. That means there are 12 zombies and an elk on Eric's side.
We're talking several zombies.
Well, if we do this right, there's 3 blockers. We'll get it for sure count. That is, if it's
It might be 8.
it's
and
just
it,
8. Oh,
yeah,
they were at the ready. It
Right.
wasn't 12. Okay, so it's not a lethal swing, but it's getting there. Not to mention, if the Teferi sticks around one more turn, Teferi can unsummon the Golos, Eric can cast it, and immediately Wooburg it.
Yep, and get another Field of the Dead. Just get so far
Yeah.
over the top.
It won't matter. Now, he needs some time. As you know, we're reaching end of round, but he's got the advantage. All of them swing in. Oko is likely being ignored here.
It's hard to say because you might end up dealing 4-ish to the Oko, but it's going to be worth at least 3 points the next turn. It's whether you want to actually commit that much power that way.
All upstairs. See whether Tim if he can afford to double block the Golos, whether he chooses to do it. Looks like the 3 zombies trade, which means 5 get in, plus the elk. We'll get a life total here. It is not much. It is 1 away from lethal, as turn 0 belongs to Tim Turner. Deputy Detention the draw, a pretty good draw.
Oh, that's a big draw here. That actually resets all of the power on Johnson's side. Well, not all of it. There's still this Golos, but that is not kill someone in 2 turns kind of interaction.
Oko makes another food. There's Deputy Detention. All the zombies are gone. But there is that play where Teferi picks up Golos, and that play matters here, as there's a Beanstalk Giant on Tim's side.
Did Turner actually find a way to turn this around? Beanstalk Giant has a lot of power.
3, 7, 11, yeah.
And Oko can actually steal the Pilgrim by trading a food for it if it ults next turn. This may be an enormous upset from Turner's side. It's going to come down to what Eric's drawn here, what he can do with what he has.
Yeah, ideally the card he draws gets him out of the situation. If it doesn't, he might have to spin, roll the dice on a Golos activation.
He certainly has the mana for it, like you were saying before.
But maybe he's drawn something else. 7 mana here suggests an Agent of Treachery.
Agent of Treachery would be a huge draw.
No, looks like actually the 7 is he's just readying his Golos mana. So, Teferi bounces the Golos. Eric draws a card. Did that change things? It was a growth spiral. So his hand has 2 growth spirals in that Golos.
Probably not changing things.
Doesn't seem like it. So, 5 mana leaves up the temple. Here is Golos. It can find a 3rd Field of the Dead. And judging by the 3 zombies here, it looks like they've decided that's the line. Now, do you use Golos now or on your opponent's turn? Doesn't matter.
You probably just want to use it now in case you hit, say, a Teferi or Circuitous Route. They're still restricted by their normal casting timings. Also, I don't believe Eric's played a land this turn.
He hasn't.
And you're going to want to be able to make that land drop if you have the opportunity.
So, there's the 2 mana. There's the Wooburg. Activates Golos. Land. Oh no. And that is a miss indeed.
Well, okay, so it doesn't feel great, but it is 6 zombies because it's a specifically Fabled Passage. Assuming there's a basic left in library, this is not that much of a nightmare. The big issue is if Turner chooses to activate Oko to trade this food token or the
Golos.
or the spent Deputy Detention for Golos.
And they know it was a huge miss for Eric. And that Deputy, a huge top deck for Tim. Now we're on Tim's second turn, and maybe Tim can win this.
Yeah, Beanstalk Giant's big.
So Oko, yeah. They're saying they have to make the trade. So have a food. Golos is coming over to this team.
Enjoy. This one's on the house.
Plaza of Harmony. 3, 6, 9, 12 lands. Not enough for 2 Golos spins.
Well, if something like a Growth Spiral comes off of Golos,
It's possible.
maybe.
Yeah. Does he have double Wooburg?
Oh, yeah, getting a second black mana could be rough here.
Here is Golos. Island. Another Golos and a Growth Spiral. That actually...
That's
Can
not
that do
bad.
it?
Well, you want to keep your own Golos in play. That way, Eric can't use a Teferi to get it back.
Now, if his gate is a Golgari gate, and he plays the land in the Growth Spiral, hold on, can't he Wooburg again?
I think he's a mana short. He would need 2 Growth Spirals. He has 5 available right now, and it's 7 to activate.
Well, he hasn't played his land this turn.
He played the Plaza of Harmony, I believe.
You're right.
I could
Okay.
be mistaken on that. There are so many lands in play, and you can't really measure anything in land drops.
You're right, it might be 1 short. Casts the Growth Spiral.
Hard to tell if it's better or worse for Johnson that Turner didn't put a land into play. Turner does only have 8 life.
Right. He still needs to answer these zombie tokens.
Yeah, there's a good chunk of damage on the battlefield here because this Fabled Passage is probably getting 3 more zombies.
Once Upon a Time from Turner.
This is coming right down to it. Good grief.
Hydroid Crisis, the find.
Okay, so this is Turner basically saying, if I end up getting another turn, I want to make sure that Johnson can't kill me the turn after that.
And that makes sense. You know, these turns do favor Turner, but because he has Golos in play. But not now. The extra turn count
That
matters.
is 5 blockers on 9 2/2s with Tim at 8, which is
I don't think that's going to do it.
Pretty good for Johnson.
Yeah, Growth Spiral cast here by Eric. What an interesting swing on things. You're right. I think
believe
it's enough.
this is exactly 8 coming across.
And then the food is on the other side, so
Yeah.
Turner can't gain the life.
Giving away the food instead of the Deputy of Detention actually makes it exact lethal.
Oh, wow. That does look like it's the situation. Once Upon a Time cast by Eric. Finds a Deputy of Detention. That's something he... Sure, I mean, it removes a blocker.
Yeah, basically just saying, all right, well, if this ain't good enough, I don't know what is.
Veil of Summer draws a card.
Well, it's possible that Turner has something like a Growth Spiral into a land here. That Veil of Summer drawing a card could find exactly that sequence to keep Turner in this game.
Yeah, Veil Summer gives your permanents hexproof from blue. So Deputy Attention not going to do anything here. And here's the swing. Is there a Growth Spiral? Can Tim make some surprise blockers?
All right, what is it?
And it is a handshake. That's what it is. Eric Johnson finds it on turn 3 with an exact swing of zombies. The mirror goes their way, and the team of Batterman, Lax, and Johnson go to 7-0, punching their ticket for day 2.
First team to lock it up as well. That was right down to it. Turn 3 of turns.